So you're going to draw pictures. Either one is okay. It's okay. I don't think she's going to take notes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 25th day of December, 2015 in Chicago, Illinois, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Many of you know this verse, so you can repeat. This is chapter 18, the perfection of enunciation, text 66. Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikang shadanam braja Aham tvang sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikang shadanam braja Aham tvang sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikang sharanam braja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha. Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikang sharanam braja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha. Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikam sharanam braja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha. Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikam sharanam braja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma. Ladies? Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikam sharanam braja Sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha. Sarva dharman parityajya Mamikam sharanam braja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo Mokshayisyami ma shuchaha. Sarva dharman, all varieties of religion. Parityajya, abandoning. Mam, unto me. Ekam, only. Sharanam, for surrender. Vraja, go. Aham, I. Tvam, you. Sarva, all. Papebhyaha, from sinful reactions. Mokshayisyami, will deliver. Ma, do not. Shuchaha, worry. I'm sorry, it's not the 25th. It's only the 24th still. Getting confused. Okay. Translation. Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Purport. The Lord has described various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion. Knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Super Soul, knowledge of the different types of orders and statuses of life, knowledge of the renounced order of life, knowledge of non-attachment, sense and mind control, meditation, etc. He has described in so many ways different types of religion. Now, in summarizing Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord says that Arjuna should give up all the processes that have been explained to him, and he should simply surrender to Krishna. That surrender will save him from all kinds of sinful reactions, for the Lord personally promises to protect him. Time out. Okay. In the 7th chapter, it is said that only one who has become free from all sinful reactions can take to the worship of Lord Krishna. Thus, one may think that unless he is free from all sinful reactions, he cannot take to the surrendering process. To such doubts, it is here said that even if one is not free from all sinful reactions, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, he is automatically freed. There is no need of strenuous effort to free oneself from sinful reactions. One should unhesitatingly accept Krishna as the supreme savior of all living entities. With faith and love, one should surrender unto him. The process of surrender to Krishna is described in the Hari Bhakti Vilas 11.676. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyatiti vishvaso goptritve vananam tatha atmanikshepa karpanye shadvidha shadanagitihi. According to the devotional process, one should simply accept such religious principles that will lead ultimately to the devotional service of the Lord. One may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position in the social order. But if by executing his duty, one does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. Anything that does not lead to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness should be avoided. One should be confident that in all circumstances, Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. There is no need of thinking how one should keep the body and soul together. Krishna will see to that. One should always think himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. As soon as one seriously engages himself in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, at once he becomes freed from all contamination of material nature. There are different processes of religion and purificatory processes by cultivation of knowledge, meditation in the mystic yoga system, etc. But one who surrenders unto Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make all progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. One should be attracted by the beautiful vision of Krishna. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. One who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. There are different kinds of transcendentalists. Some of them are attached to the impersonal Brahman vision. Some of them are attracted by the supersoul feature, etc. But one who is attracted to the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and above all, one who is attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna himself, is the most perfect transcendentalist. In other words, devotional service to Krishna in full consciousness is the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is the essence of the whole Bhagavad-Gita. Karma yogis, empiric philosophers, mystics, and devotees are all called transcendentalists, but one who is a pure devotee is the best of all. The particular words used here, ma shuchaha, don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, are very significant. One may be perplexed as to how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna, but such worry is useless. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chukshu unmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse is a perfect kickoff to our weekend, exploring the process of surrender, and specifically, as Srila Prabhupada so nicely quotes in this purport, the 6 elements or steps of surrender, beginning with accepting everything favorable and rejecting everything unfavorable. So this verse really goes with the previous verse. The previous verse is, of course, Manmana Bhakto Madhyajim Nam Namaskuru Mame Vaishasi Satyam Te Pradijane Piyosi Me. In this verse, you may recognize Krishna is repeating a verse that he uttered at the end of the 9th chapter. The 9th chapter was called the most confidential knowledge. And indeed, a few verses before this, Krishna says, thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate in this fully and do what you want to do. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. So Krishna is emphasizing in these 2 verses, beginning 65 and 66, that this is really the essence of everything that I've spoken till now. And Prabhupada reiterates this in the purport, that all that we've heard before in the Bhagavad-Gita, if one is ready to accept these 2 instructions, can be disregarded. It's all subsumed within this 2 principles. That is execution of these 4 principles of thinking of Krishna, becoming his devotee, offering one's homage to him and worshiping him. And if one can do that, and in this way give up all dharmas, all so-called religions that have some material motivation, everything will be taken care of. Don't worry. Now it's interesting that Krishna's instructions, or the Bhagavad-Gita itself, begins with the word dharma. And this is the final verse, and he's talking about dharma. So dharma is really a very important element within the Bhagavad-Gita. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. This is the first words of the Bhagavad-Gita. So Arjuna, his dilemma at the beginning, in the whole first chapter, and the beginning of the 2nd chapter, was that he had been covered by Krishna, so that he was afraid, not of dying on the battlefield. He was perfect Kshatriya. They're not afraid of that. But he was afraid of being irreligious. He was afraid of being adharmic and incurring sin and creating havoc in the world. You remember his argument. And from one point of view, it was perfectly reasonable. Right? In other words, just from a material point of view, he would be instrumental in killing thousands or even millions of men on the battlefield. And this would lead to destruction of the dynasty families, all kinds of families. Women would be unprotected. There would be an upsurge of unwanted progeny in the world, and it would create havoc. So he says, better I just leave the battlefield. I don't want this kingdom anyway. The incredible verse at the beginning of the 2nd chapter. I can't even stand to live without the sons of Dhritarashtra. He says that. Dhritarashtra, that I don't want to live and have this kingdom soaked with their blood. What to speak of my teacher Drona and Bhishma and the grandfather? From a material point of view, he thought it as completely a non-starter, this battle. So this was of course a covering of Krishna, the Yogamaya. But he argued from the point of Dharma. Right? He's not just saying this is my idea. He's saying that this is in the Vedas. It says if you destroy the dynasty, then you perform sin, and you're cause of so much destruction. So you see, the whole thing is set up on Dharma. And throughout the Mahabharata, I remember working on the Mahabharata, there was a point at which the American BBT was going to print a translation of the Mahabharata. In fact, the whole Adi Parva was done very carefully. Who's that devotee? I forget. There was an editor who was very skilled, not myself. Riktananda. He went through the whole thing, and then I went through and touched it up. This is the Adi Parva, and we went into the Sabha Parva. Was done. Anyway, there's a whole story why it didn't happen. But those 2 Parvas, if you're interested, are very nicely done. So the Sabha Parva is centered on that dramatic scene in the assembly hall where all the Kurus are there, right? And the gambling match is going on, right? Now, it's from the moment it's proposed, it's a cheating proposition. The whole idea is to cheat Yudhishthira, to play on his absolute dharma quality, that if he's challenged to fight or challenged to a gambling match, the Kshatriyas have to accept it, right? Even though he knew that there was cheating. And so he loses everything, and then there's this whole thing with, he even, and he had already performed the Rajasuya. So all that wealth was gone. Then he wagered himself. He lost himself and all of his brothers. And Bhima is sitting there steaming, but he's following his brother. That's also part of the Dharma. He's the older brother. Yudhishthira is the other. And then, of course, the wager is, what else do you have to bet? The wife, Draupadi, And so he loses. And then there's that whole scene with, dragging her in. It's very dramatic. But the argument was, you really couldn't bet, you couldn't wager her because you had already lost yourself. So there was all this dramatic argument. Vidura, of course, was arguing that it was adharmic, and Karna got up and said, no, it's perfectly right. And meanwhile, Bhishma and Drona are watching there and they're not protesting. So everyone is either being compromised or exalted by what they say in that, and do in that assembly. So everything was resting on what is the right thing to do, what is dharma. And of course, a dharma happened. That attempted disrobing of Draupadi was a horrible violation of the rules of real dharma. And it is said because of that, that's why the war took place. Because of that, horrible thing. Now, eventually, what happened is that, of course, Krishna saved her, right? Provided unlimited sari. And so Dhritarashtra stepped in and awarded Draupadi, I think, 3 wishes, things that she wanted. The first thing she said, well, let me have my husband's back, And I forget what happened, but then they got to go, and then they challenged him again. They're on the way out, and they said, let's have another gambling match. All right, got to follow it. So they lose again, and that's their exile for 13 years. And then it goes on from there. After all of that, then this takes place, the Rajasuya and everything else. So, I'm sorry, Rajasuya had already happened. So, but the point I'm making here is that Dharma is very central to the whole build up to the battle and even to the Bhagavad-Gita until this verse. Because here literally it says Sarva Dharma Parityajya, and the translations Prabhupada give up all varieties of religion, abandon all dharma, and just surrender unto me. Now there's kind of a little paradox here, or I have to really understand what the words mean. Because in the introduction, Prabhupada talks about Sanatan Dharma as bhakti, isn't it? As our eternal Dharma, our eternal nature. But here he's saying give up all Dharma. Well, he certainly doesn't mean give up Sanatan Dharma. In other words, the surrendering process, Dharma here is a variety of activity that has some element of material desire to it. Some element of purification of sin. That's the whole thing. If you're very religious and dharmic, you're concerned about not incurring sin and getting rid of previous sinful reactions. There's all kinds of sacrifices and things you might perform. But bhakti is beyond that. The whole idea is that, as Krishna says, ma shucha. By the one activity of surrendering to Krishna, everything is taken care of. Both on the negative and positive side, meaning that you have no sinful reactions to worry about. Don't worry, ma shucha. And the door to your most auspicious fortune is open, destiny, meaning going back to Godhead. They're not worrying about dharma in Goloka Vrindavan. They're just loving Krishna, right? That's the whole thing. He takes care of everything. And that's the whole theme of this weekend. Because by accepting, I was just reading up on one aspect of it, Rakshishyatiti Vishvaso, means that being confident that Krishna will protect. And on all levels. He'll protect us from any sinful reaction. right? And there are so many wonderful verses describing that. Now, Prabhupada makes the point, it seems, if you go back to the 7th chapter, where it says, Yesham tvandagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda mohine makta bhajante mam judavata. If one wants to overcome and wake up from the delusion of duality in this world, that's the previous verse, which really is what keeps us and brings us into this world. Itcha dvesha samutena dvanda mohena bharata. Savabhutani sammohang sarge yanti parantapa. By this way, just as an aside here, Srila Prabhupada would quote this verse as proof, Shastric proof, that we fell from the spiritual world. That we fell from the spiritual world. You see? Sarge means in the creation. Sarge yanti, we came into the creation. Itcha and dvesha, I want to enjoy separately. Dvesha, I'm repelled, I reject serving Krishna. Dvesha means you have a certain amount of ill will toward Krishna. That's why we're here, right? Because we want to forget him, we want to compete with him. So from that arises dvandva moha, the delusion of duality. Good and bad, up and down, all of the things in this world. Advanda mohena bharata. Sarvabhutani sammoham, and being thus bewildered, the living entities enter into this saga, into this creation. Now some people say, there's no Shastric support for that. This was Prabhupada's Shastric support. And what does it mean to be surrendered to Prabhupada? To accept his understanding of the Shastra, isn't it? Anyway, that's just an aside. But we can discuss it later. So then the next verse says, okay, you want to transcend or cure this delusion of duality, then you have to perform devotional service. But to do that with determination, you have to be free of sinful activity. Yesham dvandakatam papam janam punya karmanam, or simply engage in pious activity. Pious activity means activities of devotional service. Te dvanda moha nirmuktan, only those can be free of this duality. Te dvanda moha nirmuktan bhajante mam judavata, and worship me with determination. And this goes back, if you're performing sinful activities, you may do a little bhakti here and there, but you can't do it with any determination. That's why the 4 regular principles are there. That's like a line we have to cross in order to really be serious about devotional service. So, but Srila Prabhupada says that is subsumed. In other words, that instruction are for those who are concerned about, getting rid of their sinful activities and so forth. But this process of surrendering to Krishna solves all of that. And there are so many nice descriptions in the 11th canto, is it? Yes. 11th canto, where Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, he describes very dramatically, Yatagni susamridharchi karot ye dangsi basmasad tataman vishaya bhaktir Uddhavainangsi Kritsnashaha. My dear Uddhava, just as a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, similarly devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. And this is in the context where Krishna is saying, Bhaktyaham graya, that I am only attainable by one point of devotional service. He's speaking about pure devotion here. And that other famous verse from the Brahma Samhita, Prabhupada would often quote this verse, again with this idea of burning the seeds of sin. Yastvindra gopam atavendra mahosva karma bunnanarupa palabhajana matanoti. Karmani niyatahati kintuta bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is fulfilling through his agents, through his will, all of the karma, from all the way from Indra down to the insignificant germ. They're all receiving their just desserts under the supervision of Krishna. But that same Govinda, for those who worship him from the heart, he burns to ashes all of their sinful reactions. In other words, he takes care of it. Ma shucha, don't worry. So the process of surrendering to Krishna really is what devotional service is all about. It really is kind of the substance of it. And I've been looking at this Sharanagati songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which are based on this. He has different songs, several songs about each one of these elements. And when you study this book, you realize that there's so much depth to it. And surrender is not just something that you do, and then, oh, now I'm surrendered soul. You have to surrender every day, you know? In other words, until you come to the point of spontaneous, pure devotion on the prema bhakti level, where there's no question of, you know, loving Krishna and serving Krishna, then that surrender is a process. Because after all, accepting that we came from the spiritual world, you know, we were once surrendered, but we became unsurrendered. We have that free will at every moment, isn't it? That's the whole idea. Without the free will, there's no meaning to love. There's no meaning to prema. The love has to be freely given. So that's why you find in the expressions, the beautiful songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that so much of it is longing for the position of surrender. You know, he's saying, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this, please help me to attain these qualities of surrender. So much of the songs of Rupa Goswami, he has many songs within his Stavamala, one of which is very famous. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. That's part of the song. So this one is a little different. Prabhupada quotes it, not in the Sanskrit, but in a purport in the second canto, or no, the first canto. And it's about praying that the Lord will take the devotee's mind and place it at his lotus feet. Krishna Bhavandam Vande Manmanasamadakadamapayanitapapapankachamakadanve. He say, my dear, O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place to be my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. Is it? So the idea of Rupa Goswami, as the great acharyas often do, they take the role of a conditioned soul, you know, but a conditioned soul who is longing to be a devotee, right? Is longing to get the mercy of Krishna. That's the model that we should follow. So then he goes on, and he says, Yadapi samadushu vidadapi pashyati nanamanakamiricham inamichami nishammitavachita tadabhikabhavativicham. Though even Brahma, deep in trance, cannot achieve his goal, a glimpse of your effulgent toenails, soothing to the soul. Because, O Lord, I've heard of your compassion's endless waves, that very vision is the only boon my poor heart craves. Krishna, and then, O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place to be my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. So the idea is that we look at ourselves, and then we look at, some of these exalted personalities like Lord Brahma and others, and it says, well, even they're, having difficulty getting, the personal darshan of Krishna, the mercy of Krishna. Who am I? But this doesn't lead to discouragement. Rather, because I've heard of your compassion, therefore I'm begging that this is what I want also. I need to get that. And then he goes on. Bhaktida danchiti yadyapi madhamanattvai mamatila matri padameshwarata tatavita bhataka durgata ghananavadatri. O Madhava, despite great effort, I have not attained a drop of pure devotion. This has brought me endless pain. But though it seems impossible to ever fill this need, your monumental power gives me hope I shall succeed. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place to be in my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. So here he's expressing a desire. Right? This is important. I want to have pure devotion to you, but I'm so full. But you're so powerful that you can do the seemingly impossible. So therefore I have hope that it can still happen. And then the last verse, says, I am of a Lord. It says, today, eternal Lord, my mind is fixed upon your feet. And so I'm tasting endless mellows, nectarous and sweet. I pray that for eternity my mind may there reside to relish luscious honey that defeats ambrosia's pride. So in other words, he's showing a success, that Krishna responds to the ardent desire of his devotee. If that desire is sincere, and we make every effort to fulfill it. But, so this is the thing. We have to make every effort knowing that alone we can't do anything, but having faith that Krishna can fulfill the desires of his sincere devotee. And that's a big part of surrender. After all, when you look at what it takes, the qualities, anukulyasya sankalpa, partikulyasya varjanam, just those two, let's just think of them. They're in this purport here. Accepting everything favorable for devotional service and rejecting everything unfavorable. Think about that. I mean, if we haven't accepted some things favorable for devotional service and rejected some things unfavorable, we wouldn't be sitting here, right? There's only a few of us here. There's probably 10 million people within a 20-mile radius who aren't here. So we've gone some way towards surrender, but we can all make a huge list of on both sides of that equation of the things we haven't accepted and the things we haven't given up, right? So it's a process. So these kind of festivals in which we get together and glorify the Lord together and hear and chant, these are meant to give us impetus for wanting to be more surrendered, for moving down the path faster, for developing a desire to accept more of those things that are favorable and reject more of those things that are unfavorable. So you see, it's a mountain to climb, but we're not. We're at least at the foothills, moving up, moving up the Mount Everest, right? But the wonderful thing about devotional service is that Krishna wants us to succeed. He doesn't really care, the jnanis and the yogis trying on their own. He doesn't have any personal, of course they're living entities and he hopes they give up their nonsense and surrender. But in the process that they're engaged in, he's not personally involved. But for devotees, even the simplest devotee, with no credits in good birth, wealth, knowledge, even beauty, that's none of those are really considerations. The only thing consideration is the sincerity that I really, really want to know Krishna. I really want to purify. I really want to get out of this material world. And so that's what is so valuable about these conclaves. We can cultivate that desire. So there's a few other points I wanted to make here. So then Prabhupada talks about how there's all kinds of dharma, right? It's interesting because the Bhagavatam, this famous second chapter, is central to what dharma is about. First canto, second chapter. What is real dharma? What is supreme dharma by which the soul can be satisfied, right? Such an important section. And savai pungsang paro dharma yato bhaktir hokshaje ahaitukya patayata hiyatma supersediti. So that is really the supreme dharma which awakens devotion to Adhokshaja, Krishna. Now this word Adhokshaja is important. Every word, in Bhagavatam, every syllable. Why use this name of Krishna? Adhokshaja. Does anyone know how that word comes about? Prabhupada explains it. It really has three elements. Adha, Aksha, Ja. So Aksha refers to eyes, or in general all the senses, in this case. Ja is born, right? Like Janma. So what is born from the senses means knowledge that is gleaned from the ascending process, science. What we can figure out on our own. Krishna pushes it down. In other words, he's transcendental. We can't understand him on our own. That means there has to be some faith, right? There has to be some faith in the process. So that dharma, that activity, which awakens bhakti to Adhokshaja, Krishna, and which has no material motivation, and which is uninterrupted, cannot be stopped, that alone can give full satisfaction to the self. So we would say, well, I don't want to give that dharma up. Right? But Krishna says you should give up all dharmas here. But he's talking about basically all other dharmas. Because dharma, in its root sense, means that which sustains your existence. That which you can separate from something, which is essential. It's rooted in this, the root syllable is dri. It's the same root in the, Giridhari. We have Radha Giridhari in New Govardhan, where I come from. Dhari means to hold up. So that which sustains your existence, which cannot be separated. Everything has a dharma, right? Like this, a little sweatshirt I have has a dharma. What's its dharma? Has to keep me warm, right? And it can't just dissolve on here. It has to keep me warm over time. And if it doesn't do that, it's useless. If I put it on and I go outside and I'm colder, or I'm as cold as I was, then to throw it away, what's the use of it? Right? A chair has dharma. It has to sustain you. You sit down on it. Now, if you sit down on a chair and it collapses, what a useless chair. It wasn't really a chair. It was a trick chair, right? Shri Shri Kishore Kishore Ki Jai, Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. So Prabhupada explained, the white powder that's salty, it's salt. So similarly, the soul has a dharma, something that is inherent in the soul. And the basic principle is the soul must serve. The soul is conscious, but we're very minute. And so we have to serve. And the original, pure dharma is to serve Krishna. So we're not doing that now in our conditioned state, but we're still serving. We're serving the body, we're serving our senses, we're serving our boss, the wife is serving the husband is serving the wife, they're both serving the kids, right? And so service is going on one way or another. But all of that service just keeps us bound in this world of suffering. So that activity which can awaken our true original service to Krishna, without any material motivation, without any hedging, any mixture, that alone can bring pure satisfaction to the self. Yenatma supersediti. And that's then explained nicely in the subsequent verses. And he also deals with what dharma shouldn't be used for. He says, dharma se yapavargasya. Dharma should only aim toward liberation. Not this impersonal liberation, but liberation at the feet of Krishna. Not for anything material. Because you have these four, right? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These are the Purusharthas. But Prabhupada says it's not really religion, it's religiosity. Right? Religiosity, it's a different thing. It's seeming religion, but it's materially motivated. It's cheating religion. This famous Kaitava Dharma at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. Right? So the Bhagavatam gives up the Kaitava Dharma. Krishna is saying that also, give it up. But follow the central principle of bhakti. And if you want to call that Sanatana Dharma, fine. But he's emphasizing that the only thing that's needed is this surrendering. So in the Bhagavatam, we find that, and as Prabhupada quotes here, Dharma Sonashitak Pungsam. If you're performing some kind of Dharma, Swadharma, within your, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, whatever it is, Stri Dharma, or wifely Dharma, whatever it may be, but it doesn't awaken desire to hear and chant about Krishna, it's completely useless. Shrama evahi kevalam. You see? This is a very important verse. Prabhupada actually refers to it here. So the question is, what kind of activity will awaken that desire to hear and chant about Krishna? And that's the Sanatana Dharma, that's bhakti. Coming in the first element really is association. Because how will the seed of desire be planted? So the first part of it is to really associate with devotees, especially if a pure devotee, someone who is potent and can plant that seed within the heart. That famous Bhakti Lata Bij. Bhakti Lata Bij is a seed of the creeper of devotion. So now there's so many seeds. Seeds are being planted all the time. Seeds of desire. But these are then seen as weeds, material desires, that tend to fructify here and there. But if you plant the seed of bhakti by hearing from authorities, and you cultivate it by proper hearing and chanting, another process of devotion, then the other weeds will gradually die. But there still may be some. You have to watch out for the offenses. So it's a cultivation. But the idea is that activity has no fruitive result. It's not a materially pious or materially sinful. It's beyond that. And these activities alone can release us from any karmic bondage from previous activities, good or bad, and open up the doors of liberation to the spiritual world. So this is what Krishna is saying here. Now Prabhupada would often say that the Bhagavatam begins where Bhagavad-Gita ends, isn't it? It's a continuation. So really that's why the very first verse or second verse, Dharma projita kaitavotra. that in this Bhagavatam, all the cheating religions are kicked out. Cheating dharmas. Anything materially motivated. And the only thing that this Bhagavatam is concerned with, and this is why Vyasadeva wrote it, because he felt he hadn't emphasized Krishna enough and Krishna Bhakti enough. The only thing is pure devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that alone is really auspicious. Everything else we may do, any practice, keeps us bound here in this material world. And who knows where your destination is. You may be thinking you're getting elevated in one way or another, but if you're not really pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you're staying entangled here in this banyan tree. This is the 15th chapter, right? One to another. I think I'm making progress. But you're just climbing around in those branches. You're not getting out of the tree. and that brings up also at the beginning of that chapter, the process of surrender, text number 5, right? It all hangs together beautifully. Because there's only one way to get out of that tree. Who knows the formula Krishna gives? How can we defeat the tree? Asanga. Yudhena, Chitra. Yeah. Asanga with the weapon, the sword of detachment. One has to cut down the tree. But that's not the end of it. Then one has to search out the Lord from whom everything has come and surrender. We're back to surrender. Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha adhyatma nitya vinavitta kama dvanvaiva mukta sukadukka sangha gacchanta muda paramabhyanta. Prabhupada says this is the process of surrender. So this is another formula for surrender. Nirmana moha. The first thing, to be free of the delusion of pride, false pride. This is like a concomitant with ego, with the false ego. Me and mine, right? My body, my strength, right? And everything that I own, that I can control. Aishwarya. Aishwarya comes from the word Ishvara. So the controller means you get wealth and you can control more, right? If you have a lot of money, you can have so much control. Aishwarya and Ishwarya. So this is the delusion that we're in. Life after life after life. The false ego based on this body and everything related to it. So that's pride. That's the pride. Nirmana moha. Jita sangha dosha. Wonderful phrase. Jita sangha dosha means conquering over the faults engendered by bad association. Our whole life is association with one persons and things and all kinds of things. And if it has nothing to do with Krishna, it produces a fault. In other words, it's a contamination. So one has to conquer over that through the process of bhakti and surrender. Adhyatma nitya vinavitta kama. So always understanding oneself to be spiritual and a spiritual soul, spirit soul, and always being focused on the goal of one life, to reconnect with the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. Vinavritta kama, free of all material desires, kicking them out, with determination. Dvanvaiva mukta, free of the dualities, judging things in this world on the basis of our senses and all of this. Sukha dukkha sangha, which is known as happiness and distress. Gacchanta muda, such an unbewildered soul, padamabhyantat, goes to this supreme abode. So it all comes down to that, first recognizing what our situation is, and then imbibing the knowledge from the proper source, giving us the proper diagnosis and the proper prescription for how to cure our material disease. And that's what this whole institution is based on. Srila Prabhupada, this word has also been affected, but it's a perfect word for us. He's channeling. He's channeling. He's the perfect via medium, or perfect medium, for Krishna's instructions, for Lord Chaitanya's mood, and Lord Chaitanya's instructions, giving us the process, the knowledge, right? We simply have to accept it, take it to heart, and practice. And manmana bhavamad bhakto, it's a simple phrase, but it's rich. How to think of Krishna and how to become his devotee. Well, for that we have to, hear from the nectar of devotion and hear from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's an art, it's a science. There's so many things involved. But we have all these gifts, this treasure, and we take advantage of it, and we can enter into this and move forward in our process of surrender. Rakshasatiti Vishvaso. This is another element. To be confident of Krishna's protection. This is a big thing because so much of our life here is like warding off dangers, isn't it? Insurance companies. The insurance industry is built on fear. Right? Oh, my house may burn down. Okay, take the money. I may die and leave my child without anything. Okay, another insurance. What about health insurance? There's another bill. Your whole life can just be paying insurance bills, all based on fear, on anxiety. So how to be, confident of Krishna's protection in this world of dangers? Padam padam yad vibhada. Samashvitaye, but here's some more his surrender verse. Samashvitaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punyayasho marare pavam buddhi vatsapadam padam 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 yad vibhadam natesham. It's a very encouraging verse. Now this is spoken actually by Shukadev to Parikshit, after the whole prayers of Brahma. It's in the same chapter. And, Parikshit is a perfect example. Here's someone who's sitting there, right, perfectly composed, given up his whole kingdom, all of his paraphernalia, everything. He doesn't have his army there, there's nothing. And he's just sitting, listening to Bhagavatam, and there's a snake bird out there. There's death personified coming to get him. And at one point he says, who cares? Let the bird bite me now. You just go on chanting about Krishna. You see? So the point is he's feeling completely free of anxiety and fear. He's transcended because of this, he's hearing the Bhagavatam from the pure source. So this verse says, in that regard, Samashitaye padapallavaplavam, that one who takes shelter of Krishna's lotus feet is like a boat. Very poetic. Padapallavaplavam mahatpadam. Now, this mahatpadam has two meanings. One is where the Mahat Tattva lies. In other words, the whole universe is resting on those feet, and it's where all the Mahatmas stay, the great souls, at the lotus feet. Punya yasho morare. Now, Punya yasho means you just hear about his glories and you become pious. Punya yasho morare. Morare is the enemy of Mura, it's the name for Krishna. Then what's the result? This whole ocean, impossible to cross, right? Shrinks down to the matter of water in a hoofprint of a calf. Not even a cow, but a calf. So how easy that is to cross over, right? So Mahatpadam Bhavambuddhiya, the ocean of birth and death, Vatsapadam Parampadam. Such souls have already gone to the supreme abode. Parampadam is the spiritual world. Not for them. Padam padam yadvipadam natesham is this world where there's danger at every step. You see? So how wonderful that is. If we can just take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. What is really real? For the materialists, they start with matter, right? And then this is real. Don't tell me all this, this mumbo jumbo. This is where reality is, right? But really, isn't fear a reality? That's not something you can weigh, but that is a substantial problem in this world. Anxiety, fear, longing, depression, these are results of mode of ignorance, right? This depression. It's a huge problem. Billions of pills are being sold every year in America to counteract this depression. Artificially, change the brain. But the reality is that devotees who are sincerely serving Krishna and who are chanting nicely and take shelter, they're free of fear. We saw it with Srila Prabhupada in spades. Amazing bravery, courage. And what about, we just, this morning we heard about Prahlad, and not just, in ancient times, but what about Haridas Thakur? What about, some of the devotees who, I was reading about Yamuna and her compatriots there. They went to India, right? That famous first trip where Prabhupada, the whole thing, Prabhupada had this idea of a world Sankirtan party. Did you know that? And he wanted good musicians. Who is it? Michael Grant was sent, Mukunda Maharaj was sent, really like a professional musician, And they're organizing this band, and who did they meet? George Harrison. I mean, it was amazing. So it really sounded good, The Prabhupada wanted to set up a World Sankirtan party. And the first element was going to London and starting that temple, those 6. Anyway, so when the temple finally was open, Bury Place was going, and there were many more devotees. He said, okay, now let's come to India. I think was it 70? I think it was 70. So how did they get to India? I never thought of this. They got to India. They didn't have hardly any money. So they looked around for the cheapest flight. They found an amazingly cheap flight to India for all of them. But the flight was like this, literally one plane, and it wasn't a jet. It was a propeller plane, and it was they went out of business after that flight. Yes, they get on the plane, and it's like, the pilot is like, kicking the engine, or it was crazy. It was like you can't believe it. And they land in Egypt in the middle of like a whole war. And they don't even know it. They're not watching the news or anything. They're reading newspapers. Suddenly they're in the middle of an Arab country. And what do? They get off and start chanting Hare Krishna. Literally, they're surrounded by soldiers with guns. And Giriraj Prabhu at the time, he had this way of chanting with japa. We would jump up and down while chanting. So he's jumping up and down, and they're pointing the machine guns at him. And it was a miracle. It was Krishna's complete miracle that they actually got to Bombay. And when they got to Bombay, there was a strike, there was a bund, they couldn't even get into the airport for like hours, The great devotees, and they're soldiering on, So it's not that, only in the books, even we can find great examples of how devotees take on great risks for Krishna. And he reciprocates, So the idea is that in order to surrender, we really have to rely on Krishna for protection. It doesn't mean that we cancel our health insurance or anything like that. We take reasonable, but that's where we're confident that Krishna will protect. And the most important thing He will protect, because after all, one day all of us will leave the body, is that He'll protect our consciousness, because we're not the body. So that's what really counts. Is that if we're surrendered, He'll make an arrangement that we can remember Him at the time of death. That's what really is important. And there's many stories about that also. So all of these elements we'll discuss in the future days. But, this is such a wonderful verse. And these 2 verses together, if we can just realize these 2 verses, we can advance nicely in Krishna consciousness. And so now, if you'll forgive me, I put them both into a little prayer, or a little poem. Just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend, I promise you, this boon I shall bestow. Reject all kinds of dharma, and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun, from anxiety be free. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, any comments, questions? Yes, Prabhu. We have a customer. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
So, you said these 2 verses are 65 and 66 are the essence of the Bhagavad-Gita, and we can
Krishna says they're most confidential, go ahead.
And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya, in his conversation, Ramananda Rai says that this verse is actually external, go deeper.
Right.
Could you comment on that?
Yes. So, from our position, in other words, the Bhagavad-Gita is literally for everybody, The Ramananda Samvad is not for everybody at all. So these 2 verses, Manmanan and Sarvadharma Parityajya, they are if we can actually realize them, then they open up a path, a serious devotional service. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate. It's not even the graduate, right? You have this high school, and then you have the college, and then you have the postgraduate, Bhagavatam, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita. So external means that it doesn't say anything about really, advanced rasa. It doesn't talk about the glories of hearing and chanting. You remember the verse that he finally said is okay? Jnane Piyasam, right? Yeah, so this is a verse by Lord Brahma in his prayers, where he says, Jnane Piyasam udapasya namantaheva jivan disanmukaditam bhavadiya vartam. That he's saying, give up all of these hard endeavors to attain knowledge. And simply surrender. Surrender to what? To hearing the vibrations emanating from the mouth of the pure devotees. Stay in your position. Don't do anything artificial. Stane sitak, shruti gatam. Follow this path of hearing. But he gives tanuvan manobir, with your body, your mind, and your words. So in other words, with our senses, our active senses and, the knowledge-acquiring senses, we're meant to hear the instruction and follow it. Actually engage in devotional service. With our mind, we're meant to think, use our intelligence to contemplate these instructions. And with our words, we're meant to repeat them. And if you do all these things, then you can conquer Krishna. Why? Because you'll develop love for him. He's only conquered by love. Ye prayaso ajita jitopasitais trilokyam. Now this is, quite a bit beyond just saying surrender to Krishna. You see? In other words, this is a direct entry into this process of hearing and chanting and serving Krishna in a higher level. So Krishna said, Lord Chaitanya says this is proper. But Sarva Dharma Vidichaja is more or less on the threshold. This is the entry. Surrender is really the entry into higher levels of bhakti, real experience of bhakti. That's the principle of surrender in and of itself. So this is what I would say in that. Maharaj, maybe you want to expand on that. I'm not sure. Anyone else? Oh, we have a customer over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class.
Not a Maharaj, not yet. Simple brahmachari, but thank you anyway.
I was actually thinking a lot about this verse for a couple of days. We just came back from Israel 2 days ago, and we go pretty often, but we went to Jerusalem 3 days ago, and it's such a beautiful place. You can see, basically you can even see many buildings which are 2,000 years old, stones and so many holy temples. And then at the same time you can really feel all this fighting which is going on the basis of the religion. And it's again, it was I felt very emotional because we were even afraid to go this time to Jerusalem. Though we really love it, you can really feel the spiritual energy there too, all these Jesus temples and Jewish and even mosque. And these beautiful churches were, I felt they were built with love to God. And at the same time, it's always fighting is going on the name of God. So I felt I got confused and it was kind of hard. But this verse was making some sense. So we're thinking what we can really do to to help it. Because one of the holiest places in the world, and it's so much confusion.
Yeah, the thing is, when you have, one of the basic principle of you hear about in the Bhagavad-Gita, starts with understanding your soul, not the body. So when you have any individual person or group of persons who are identifying with their place of birth or what family they're born in or the color, the race, all of these things, then you're going to have all of these divisions. you're going to have a conflict. Because there are so many differences in the body, the old and the young, the male and the female, and races and all kinds of stuff. Krishna mentions Krishna says in the 10th canto, actually at Kurukshetra, I think they're for that solar eclipse thing. And they're saying, he says, Yasyatma buddhi gunapetvi dhatake swadhi kalatradishapomi jide. That one who identifies himself with the body and that he feels kunapeti swadhi kalatradisha, and that he feels his possessions included in the family and the property, and that the place of birth is worshipable. This is the origin of nationalism, who simply goes to a holy place just to bathe and doesn't really hear any holy men or holy persons, is no better than an ass. In other words, is foolishness. So there may be temples, there may be so many things, but if the essence of what is actually going on there, because I hear about it, who could not understand what's happening? It's based on a very deep identification with race and these things, and whatever it is in terms of religion, it doesn't begin to understand to see everyone equally, to see on the basis of the soul, not on the basis of the body. If the religion doesn't encompass that, then it can just be, hey, I didn't say it. Shruti smriti puranani panchadattara bading vina aikantaki hare bhakta utpataya vikalpate. That's any so-called religion or service of Hari, God, that has no reference to the Shrutis, the Vedas and the Upanishads, the Smritis and the Puranas such as Bhagavatam, a Pancharatra, deity worship instructions, is simply a disturbance in society. This is the verdict of the Shastra quoted by Sanatana Goswami, I believe. So, this world obviously needs Krishna consciousness more than ever. You see, absolutely, the truth of Krishna consciousness, how so many different races, different nationalities are completely reconciled. You go to Mayapur, it's like a genuine United Nations. There's the Chinese and there's many Russians, although not as many as before because the economy is down, but, and there's a smidgen of Americans, and all kinds of, and they're chanting, and no one is thinking, oh, there's a Russian Vaishnava, there's a French Vaishnava. No. We're all just chanting, And so that's really the only hope for humanity. This is one of the reasons, Prabhupada was so adamant to push on this movement. I mean, that whole, beginning when he first saw Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was a follower of Gandhi. He thinks, we can't really propagate this until we have independence. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, no, it's so supremely urgent. Forget independence. This is much more important. This propagation of Krishna consciousness. This is really what can only save the world, And then after that, there's World War II happened. Prabhupada started, the Bhakti Godhead in the middle of World War II. And so these parties can only be reconciled when we transcend the bodily concept of life. Otherwise, these wars are going to go on, and it's going to be, the real Vaishnava's heart is bleeding for that, seeing that. But we know that only Harinam can really pacify people. That's the only source of peace in this world. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll leave you with a nice, sweet verse. Go ahead. I'll still leave you with a sweet verse, but go ahead.
Can you please explain the statement that...
Hold the mic a little closer.
Okay. Please, could you explain the statement that Krishna says, if you can understand the verse in chapter 9, you can disregard everything before?
If you can understand what we just read in the previous verse, or...
No, I'm probably not... you made a statement saying that everything before a certain verse can be disregarded if we can understand that verse.
Well, I'm basically quoting the purport here. I mean, Prabhupada says, okay, he's spoken so much karma yoga, jnana yoga, and but he's saying that. Let's see, where does he say this? Bhagavad-Gita. Sorry. Okay. So, I forget where it is. But that's the theme of this purport. Karma yogis, empiric philosophers, mystics, this is described, 6th chapter, 3rd chapter. They're all transcendentalists, but one who is a pure devotee is the best of all. So don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, very significant. Basically, Krishna is saying this. He said, Sarva dharma parijajya, that's what it means. It means give up all the other dharmas that I spoke about. Now it doesn't mean they're not important, because people are at different levels. So for those who are materialists, who are fruitive workers, study chapter 3, you can still work, but give over as much as you can for sacrifice. Yagyartat karmanonyatra, right? That's an important instruction. But for someone who's ready to surrender to Krishna, it's a given. His very life breath is serving to Krishna. Why do you have to instruct him? You should give up. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it's subsumed within. It's not that you reject the principle, but you've gone beyond that. It's just like a 5th grader doesn't have to worry if he's in 8th grade. Oh, I made it to 8th grade. I don't have to study the 5th grade stuff anymore. But that's important if you're at that level. You see? So Krishna is speaking Gita to draw everybody in, no matter who you are. And this is the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But it's a little different approach. No matter who you are, you can be the most sinful sinner. That's okay. Just chant Hare Krishna and take prasad. Right? Isn't that our preaching mood? Everybody's invited. Come to the Sunday feast. Chant Hare Krishna. And as soon as they chant Hare Krishna, so many eons of births of sin are dissipated. Right? And then they take prasadam, and then more purification take place. And before you know it, they're shaved up and chant Hare Krishna. And they're living in the ashram. Ideally, anyway. You understand what I'm saying? So that, but at the same time, the intelligence has to become strong. So there's chanting and dancing, and then there's the pravachan. Prabhupada would have the kirtan for an hour, then he would speak. Because just the chanting and dancing can lead to frivolity, can lead to prakrita sahajya. Don't get me wrong, it's a complete process. But because of who we are and how we need to have, develop our intelligence and so forth. But that's these 2 verses. It's not that we don't read the whole Bhagavad-Gita, but we should keep our eyes, that this is the essence, and if we can follow it perfectly, then we'll be able to explain the Bhagavad-Gita very nicely to others. That's the idea.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
May I ask another question?
Another one? Go ahead.
Okay. It's basically curiosity when you were speaking about Draupadi.
I'm sorry, my ears aren't what these
Okay. It's the scene with Draupadi coming in.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it's just out of curiosity, I was just thinking, was there something that she had done to be put in, to have to suffer? I know that she's a pure devotee, but was there something that she had done to have to go through the...
No, we never think like that. It was always that. It was Krishna's arrangement putting her in a situation to show something.
Okay.
Just like, Prabhupada went through so much hardship. You don't think it's something he did. It was something, Krishna's teaching us through him and, exalting, that he would surrender and go through all that.
I was thinking about, I think it's Bhishma Dev. So maybe I have heard wrong, but because of he poked some insect way back in some other lifetime, that's why he had to lie on a bit of arrows. So I was wondering if there's some similar...
I don't want to go there without reading up on it.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't presume to say anything on that,
Okay.
I mean, Bhishma Dev also seemed to be on the wrong side, this whole thing, and that's and so there's that. But when you look at these great exalted Vaishnavas, I always like to see, well, this is Krishna acting. He's engaging these souls, these great souls, as a teaching for us. I mean, who was there when he left his body? Krishna's standing over him. He's got all the people, the greatest personalities in the universe came to see him. So how can there be anything negative about, Bhishma Dev? And yet, he took up the arrows, he's going to kill Arjuna. It's all very mysterious. This is why Kunti says, you're bewildering me, with your activities. Your fear is afraid of you, but you're running in fear from Mother Yashoda? Doesn't compute. At one level, it doesn't compute, right? But then it computes perfectly. Krishna is drawing out this mood from Mother Yashoda, hiding his glory, So Krishna is engineering all these things, and sometimes it's very bewildering. And that's as far as I can take it. But can I just give my sweet verse, and then we can adjourn? Permission? You may have heard it before, but hey, ever fresh. This is from Stavavali by Raghunath Das Goswami. He's describing how he's tasting the holy name. Radheti nama navasundara siddhu mugdham Krishneti nama madhurabhadagada dugdham Savakshanam sadaviragahimena ramyam Kritvatadaiva pibame rasane chudarte. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes. Such is the name of Radha, by whom all three worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet. Such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.